Hello everybody and welcome back to another edition of the Commissioner Chronicles on the DLF YouTube channel. I am your host, Nathan Powell, and today I am going to be talking about rookie drafts and how to commission them and the things you have to do to set up and perform a rookie draft as the commissioner. So I'm your host, Nathan Powell, and this is my commissioner series on the DLF YouTube channel that basically breaks down different league components, different league rules, and how to, conduct them as the commissioner and basically how to write them, how to implement them, whatever it may be. We're going to break it down step by step, all the different things you need to know for today about rookie drafts. Rookie draft season is right in the corner, or it might be happening right now as you're watching this, or if you're watching this in November, it happened in the offseason. So, rookie drafts. First one you got to do, as far as rookie draft, this isn't really decided in April or May, but this is something involved with rookie drafts, and that's the draft order. You have to decide as the commissioner or as the group putting together the league, you have to decide how does your draft order want to be decided. There's a number of ways to put together a draft order. I'll probably do a draft order video at some point, but just some of the basic ones are inverse of the previous year's standings. So with that, if you have the worst record, you get the top pick. If you have the sixth worst record and you just missed the playoffs, then you have the 106. And then as teams get eliminated in the playoffs, that's when they get slotted into the draft order. Other ways to do that include some people do a toilet bowl to determine the 101. So this kind of makes it harder to rebuild overall, but it puts some excitement to that end of year battle between the non-playoff teams. They're trying to get that 101, and then maybe it either goes inverse order after that, or even just the order of elimination. The top team gets the 101, second team gets the 102. I think that's definitely much less common. And then the third way to determine draft order is potential points. So essentially, how many points, the maximum amount of points, basically your best ball score each week, and the potential points is the least amount of points to the most amount of points in draft order from the worst non-playoff team to the best non-playoff team. And it is draft order, and it is done that way. That is one way to, deter tanking in some people's minds. So those are the three main ways to do draft order: inverse standings, toilet bowl competition, or potential points. Next, how many rounds? So you have to decide how many rounds you want in your rookie draft. This is determined, during the startup usually. Before the startup, you'd say, okay, we're gonna have a 4-round rookie draft, we're gonna have a 5-round rookie draft. And really what you want to decide here is, A, how deep are your rosters? If you have like 20 to 24 roster spots, you probably don't need a 4 or 5 round rookie draft. If you have 20, 25, 26, 28, 30, the more roster spots you have, the more rookie draft rounds you should have. And the less you have, the less necessary it is. Another thing to take into account is how much you want the waiver wire involved. So if you want there to be an active waiver run immediately after the rookie draft, you can say, okay, we'll only do 3 rounds. If you only do 3 rounds, then depending on whether it's 12, 14, 16, there is going to be stuff left over that people want in that 4th or 5th round. Nothing that's going to be striking gold through the waiver wire, but that is one opportunity to give people an opportunity that don't have draft picks or have fewer draft picks to engage with the rookies and pick up some rookies through the waivers. So there are advantages to having less rounds. You have a more active waiver wire immediately after the rookie draft. There's advantages to a deep one because you give people more tradable assets throughout the year, and they are able to mine for more of their deeper sleepers and just guys that they're going to have on their roster, between May and August, and likely. And we'll get into this next about possible roster expansion / roster cut down. So next thing you have to do for your rookie draft is decide on roster expansion. Some leagues expand for an entire offseason. Some leagues expand only for the rookie draft. Some leagues don't expand at all. So roster expansion, I know we have a video on this earlier on. Roster expansion is if you have a typical roster of 24. Roster expansion is adding additional roster spots for only the offseason or only during the rookie draft. And so roster expansion does kind of shape how many rounds your rookie draft is. So typically, in a draft format, I like to do double the amount of rounds. So if you have 24 roster spots and 3-round rookie draft, then I suggest having a roster expansion of 6, because there's people that are going to be trading for picks. There's people that are going to be active on the waiver wire if you have a waiver wire run before the before your rookie draft. But roster expansion, the main thing that you really don't want to see, and we'll keep on going to this as we move on, But one thing you kind of want to avoid is people having to drop players in order to make draft picks. So the only true way to like guarantee that happening is just to say there are no there's no roster restrictions during the rookie draft or roster restrictions during the offseason. You have unlimited roster spots, and therefore you won't need people to cut people during the rookie draft. I don't necessarily love that because that gives some advantages to people who could possibly build like super teams. And as a commissioner, I am trying to, I'm not restricting people from making trades or restricting people from doing certain things. But when you make unlimited roster spots, that does create, give leverage to the possibility of super teams, because one of the things that's restricting you from creating a better team sometimes is you don't have the roster spots to do it. You don't have the roster spots to, stash these sleepers the entire offseason. So with roster expansion, I typically advise double the amount of the rounds of your rookie draft. So if you have a 4-round rookie draft, do 8. If you have a 3-round rookie draft, do 6. So do double the amount of rounds. That's what I usually advise for roster expansion. Some people do 1x, so 3-round rookie draft, 3 roster spots. I think that can often give a disadvantage to people who acquire picks, because obviously if you have your 3 picks and you acquire 3 picks, that's 3 cuts you're going to have to make during the rookie draft if you only expand by 3. Next, we have timers and timeout rules. For rookie drafts, I like to try and keep people as engaged as possible during the rookie draft. And if you don't have a timer, it can lead to people being on the clock for days, which is not necessarily a good thing. It's a bad thing in most cases. Some people say, oh, well, we have all offseason, what's the rush? I say in order for people to keep being engaged, looking at the draft, making trade offers, you have to have it going at least some sort of pace. So my recommendation is often doing a 9-hour clock with a timer that shuts off in the middle of the night. It isn't always fair to, if you're playing with people overseas or that work nights, but most people can handle a 9-hour clock with the timer shut off between midnight and 6 a.m. or even 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Something along those lines is what I like to recommend as far as a timer. Now, when you have a timer, you have to then have timeout rules, because if you have a timer, there's the possibility of someone timing out. So there are a number of ways to go about what you do when people time out. I think the most common way for people to do with a timeout and during a rookie draft is you have the skip pick. So the pick gets skipped, and through much like in the NFL draft, if the team runs out of time, the team after them can run to the podium and make their pick. Until the person makes their pick, people keep on making their picks, and those players become unavailable. So if you have the 3rd pick and you time out, and the 4th, 5th, and 6th pick all make their pick, you then have basically the 6th pick, because you don't have the 4th, 5th, and 6th guys who pick those there available to you once you've come back to your thing. I don't necessarily like that option from a commissioner perspective, because from my opinion, people who time out in rookie drafts are often the type of people who are going to be leaving the league the following year. So by doing that option, you're really only hurting the team. You're only hurting the team that timed out, and you're only hurting yourself when that team that times out leaves the following year, and you have to fill that spot. So my top recommendation for if you're going to have a timer, the timeout rule to be that the person is given the top player via ADP, and then if teams 4, 5, 6 make their picks, and with the 7th pick available, the guy would prefer to have the 7th guy rather than the 3rd guy, the 7th player rather than the 3rd player, then that is an option available. You can change your pick after the auto pick, but you can't change it to anyone who has already been picked after the auto pick has occurred. So that's one way to not hurt, what I see as a potential orphan in the future by giving them the auto pick. It's not as bad as the skip pick, because it gives them a player that is valued top on ADP. Obviously, that doesn't always correlate to dynasty value, but I think it's better than the skip pick of, okay, you don't get a player until you show up and get back on the clock. So, or not even on the clock, once you get back and are able to make the pick. So I think that a lot of people prefer the skip pick because it's probably the most fair for everybody in terms of, well, you're out of luck, you missed your pick. And especially the next guy, oh darn, I couldn't get this guy because he was auto picked. But from a commissioner standpoint, I think that the best way for the ability to fill the league in the future, because oftentimes those guys who are getting skip picks often do become orphans, the best option is that top player available. Next, free agents available. So we talked about roster expansion, and this is kind of correlates with that a little bit. So with free agents available, this can often be determined by, does your league have waivers running from February to May? I think that the norm for the most part is no, that after the season ends in December, January to April is kind of a dormant period as far as waivers. That creates some, decent waiver fodder for the first waiver run, or if your rookie draft is becoming a rookie free agent draft. So you have to create rules around if your rookie draft is rookies only or rookies and free agents. And then there's also rules that you would have to make. So if you have a limited amount of roster spots, if you don't do a large expansion or complete full no limitations on roster spots during the rookie draft, you then have to make rules on free agents who are cut during the draft. So for me, I prefer to try and just make it rookies and then make that a nice waiver run afterwards, because I think the number one problem with making free agents available is free agents who are cut during the draft. So if a player is if I'm on the clock at 3:01, I don't have any more roster spots because I'm full up and I'm making my pick at 3:01. So I cut a player, and let's say I cut a player and the 212 says, well, I would have rather had the player you cut than the guy who I picked at 212. And so then the 302 in that manner is worth more to the 212 guy than the 302 is. And so it can, there's a lot of luck involved of like, when is the guy getting cut? Who is picking after the guy who cut him? And so that is one of the disadvantages of having free agents available. So I would highly suggest, if you're going to have free agents available, also do it unlimited roster slots, at least during the rookie draft, so there are no cuts that then end up being immediately picked up after the cut is made. So I prefer rookies only, but if you're going to implement free agents, either make a rule that free agents who are cut are not eligible to be drafted, or make a rule that you have unlimited rosters, so unlimited options during the rookie draft, so there are no cuts during the rookie draft, and you don't have to worry about that concept happening. Next, we have when. So this is something that usually determined in the startup year. You decide when is the rookie draft going to be for the league that you're talking about. And the most common one is in the weeks following the NFL draft. Some people like to do the weeks before the NFL draft. I've seen rookie drafts as early as January, February even. So when you have your rookie draft, it kind of depends on the skill level of your owners, the preferences of your owners. And I personally prefer after the rookie draft. A lot of people say that there is a lot more skill involved of doing your rookie draft before the NFL draft. I think that's true to an extent, but there are a decent amount of luck involved of like guy going higher on the board than many people expected and things like that. So it really is up to manager preference, whether it's the commissioner or the group as a whole. As a commissioner, I want to appease as many people as possible. So I'm not going to go up to a group of owners who don't know much about rookies and say, okay, hey, we're going to do our NFL draft in April, before the NFL draft. I'm going to, set everyone up for success by saying, okay, we're going to do it, 2 weeks after the NFL draft. Another option is you have pre-draft, you have shortly after the NFL draft, and then you have, for people that are more of a redraft crowd, you have the rookie draft in August during training camp. And that provides even more information for people to consume, mini camps, training camps, all those things. People get all that time to consume that information, and they can use that to make their picks in the rookie draft. So when you're commissioning a rookie draft, you have to decide when is it going to be. It's going to be pre-draft, shortly after the NFL draft, or much later in the offseason once that information is available to everybody. So I think that there's no right or wrong solution. I think that there is right or wrong solutions kind of depending on the players that you are playing with. So make sure you take your managers and owners into account when you're deciding when you want to hold the rookie draft, and also take their opinion. Don't just make a decision on your own. So unless you go into it creating, okay, I'm going to make a medical league that centers around the rookie draft being before the NFL draft. Oh, one more thing on when. One format that I like a lot that is becoming more popular is double copy leagues, and there being 2 rookie drafts. There's a rookie draft before the NFL draft where each copy can be picked, and there's a rookie draft after the NFL draft where the other copy can be picked. So that I think, and that's kind of more popular in the auction format, but there are ways to implement that as well from a rookie draft perspective as well. So I think that's an intriguing option to consider as well for your rookie draft. If you're doing a double copy league, doing one rookie draft before the NFL draft and one rookie draft after the NFL draft. That should wrap us up for today. We appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to subscribe, like this video. Commissioner Chronicles, this has been the episode on rookie drafts. If you have any questions, hit me on Twitter @NPowellFF, and I'd be happy to answer your rookie draft or other commissioner questions. Thanks so much. Have a great day.